One of the things that I admire about what you've been able to accomplish, even though you are somewhat saying it in jest, is that you've been able to balance art and life, to be an artist and be a creative person, writer, director, actor, producer, as well as live a life and have a family. How were you able to get to that?
Well, I put family first and career a close second, but I did put the family first, and that was the reason for the move back home to Michigan. Kathleen, my wife, is from here, and we had one 2-year-old boy at the time who's now 19, and we knew we were going to have a couple more.
Went fast, huh?
Yeah, but we knew this is where the family was going to.
Right.
So whatever the career was going to be, it was going to have to work around the family instead of the family working around the career, which is so often the case. And families have a tougher time surviving that scenario. So there was that. Plus, I hated LA.
Did you live out there for a while?
No. I was there about 3 months. My longest period was 3 months. And I just rarely. I mean, I'm infamous for getting on the 9 o'clock plane out of Detroit, landing in LA at noon, renting the car, doing the meeting at 3, waiting around for the red eye at 11, and coming home. I never take my coat off. So, and get some therapy, but that's just the only way I could do it for years. And the other thing, I just didn't think the career would last. I mean, it's so fickle. Movies are just, we can all think of actors who were here and gone, and those are the ones who even got there.
Right.
So after 5 or 6 movies in 1986, we moved back home.
And you were based out of New York at the time.
New York, 10 years in New York, and then I wanted the kids. I didn't want them growing up inside the industry, which New York certainly less so, but LA is all about, it's a factory town, and they make movies. And I just, for better or worse, I just didn't want them growing up inside that, so they'd have to leave that or be immersed in it or spend their lives in it. So I kind of, we like the Midwest, and all those factors said go home to Michigan and answer the phone and go do movies, and when it stops, then you're home. And it didn't stop.
I don't know how many people here could so appreciate how fortunate that really is to be able to do, to be able to live where you want to live and do what you want to do, and earn a great living and get to do wonderful parts and work with so many creative people. I mean,
there were guys before. I mean, when I did it in '86, I mean, the famous people, and I certainly wasn't famous then. Redford was in Utah. Sissy Spacek, I knew of a farmhouse in Virginia. Maybe Tommy Lee Jones had his place in Texas. And maybe there were some others, but they're not like now. I mean, now you got a lot of guys in Chicago. Yeah, I mean, they're all over the place. So. Yeah, I was a pioneer.
So let's go back for a second, and what are you shaking your head about?
I just, I've got movie executives that go and say, "How's Minnesota?" Michigan. Started with an M. You were very close.
People don't realize how, especially in Los Angeles, or because we come up to Michigan in the summers, how wonderful Michigan is.
Right.
And we were sitting on the plane, Bob and I. Some guy who was sitting next to us, he lives in Grand Rapids, and my father-in-law does business up there. And so we really know Michigan, and it is so, my daughters just love coming because they could be kids, and they're teenagers now, but they could be kids and run around and have a life and especially get away from LA, which is where we live.
And it's okay to be from somewhere other than LA and New York. It really is.
Yes.
They don't understand that, but it really is okay to be from some place like, near Detroit. Right. And be proud of that. I mean, the fact that Bob Seger got inducted, in the last couple of weeks was a source of pride for me and a lot of people who live here. And, the people on the coasts don't always think of those of us in between the coasts as being as important. Right. And they forget, and certainly in the acting end of it, I don't know what the SAG would know the percentages, but you know, the actors are from Detroit and Des Moines and Chicago and Dubuque and St. Louis. I mean, they're from a lot of places other than, you know, New York and LA.
So let's go back. You grew up here in Michigan, and did you have any early influences to get you started on acting?
Yeah, well, you know, I did high school musicals. Grew up in Chelsea, which small, 150 people in the class, and they did a musical a year, and so I got dragged into that because I could sing. I was in the chorus, and the musical teacher was the choir director, chorus teacher as well. So I was doing South Pacific, and then Oliver, and then Tevye, and then I was doing all the roles I have no business doing, but 18 years old and blonde and playing the Jewish milkman.
From Russia.
So, right. I didn't know what Jewish was.
Do you remember any of the music?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I went to see Topol's film was out at the time. I saw it 6 times. I had him down. Rich Little's got nothing on you know.
Did you find that your early acting was trying to imitate other actors?
That musical was Fagin and Oliver. I saw Ron Moody's, you know, the movie. But I worked on that for 6 months before we actually did the 3 performances on a week. I mean, it was just insane. So it had kind of morphed into something, Ron Moody plus me.
Sure.
Not that I knew it, but you know. But you know, and she kept doing the musicals, and I kept doing and getting more and more experience. I went to Central Michigan University, which, you know, a friend of mine was a year ahead of me, and he just needed a roommate. So I went there. And they also had a theater department with not enough kids. Brand new theater, Bush Theater, and not enough, so to speak, Bush Theater. Not enough.
No politics.
Right.
Hard not to, but
boy, that doesn't make any sense. Bush and theater. So, but there weren't enough kids. There weren't enough kids.
Don't forget to vote.
And so I got opportunity. By the sophomore year at Central, I was on stage, and I thought that was good for me versus, say, a Michigan or a Harvard or you know, go someplace where you're battling already. There's enough battling once you go to New York or LA. So, and then when I was in my junior year, I auditioned down here at Ypsilanti, Michigan, at Eastern Michigan. They were doing a 4-play rep festival, and one of the directors was from New York, a guy named Marshall W. Mason.
Is that how you met him?
Yeah, he flew out here to Eastern to basically direct Hotel Baltimore, which had been opened in New York a couple of years before that, maybe, and Hot Summer and Smoke. They were doing 4 plays, and they were going to get 16 of the best actors in the state of Michigan. And so I auditioned, and...
you want to tell everyone who Marshall is?
Well, I didn't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm auditioning, and I look like this, except worse.
Right.
And everybody else is like dressed, and they're doing Hamlet and doodle-doo, and I'm doing, you know, whatever I just did in the last play at Central, and saying, thanks, that's great. I got Red Wing tickets tonight, so I won't be coming to the callbacks. But it was a great experience to audition, and thank you very much. And I was out of there, and Rory Murphy, who was a couple of years ahead of me at Central, who was tough on me when I was a freshman, sophomore, and one of these, you know, guys back in the costume department who just looked you up and down and just, you know, he stopped me and he said, you know, you should go to the callbacks for this. I'm going, he goes, no, one of the guys is from New York. And that's all, he just walked away. And I stayed, got the lead in Marshall's play, his production of Summer and Smoke, did the rehearsals, and before the first performance, he took me out to a bar in Ipsy, and he just said, you know what you should do with your life, don't you? And I'm going, well, I want to be an actor. And, you know, Marshall was the artistic director of Circle Repertory Company, which was then the leading theater, off-Broadway theater company for new American plays. You know, a huge break. So I went to New York, skipped my senior year at Central and went to New York.
And did your family, were they supportive and encouraging of this? Or
Yeah, my dad runs a lumber company in Chelsea, still does, and mom's a homemaker. And I went to him and, you know, I'm going to quit school and go to New York in August, and he thinks I'm good enough and I should go. And they just looked at me and said, you should go. That was
Great.
it.
It's great to have
That's
parents who could be supportive, because so many young actors have to battle the parents about it.
I can remember all those musicals, Tevye and Fiddler on the Roof, right? And so we come back after the 3-hour-long musical in the high school auditorium that you can't even breathe in.
Mm-hmm.
And they analyzed every song, every scene. I thought you were really good in that scene with the older daughter.
Sure.
That was really right on the money tonight. You know, I'm really trying to, you know, be a part of it. And we'd stand in those kitchens and discuss it like you discuss a game or something, you know. And so when it came time, when they got that break, they were smart enough to go, how can we help you go?
That's terrific. You're really fortunate.
Yeah.
Had you ever been in New York before?
Years ago as a kid. No, that was, yeah, no, it was, it was, everything you've heard is true, especially when you're 21 and you're right out of the cornfields. Yeah.
So where'd you live when you moved into the city? How'd you get yourself started?
Marshall had an extra bedroom, so I was there for 2 weeks, and then I got a one-room apartment on 23rd and 7th.
Oh, I used to live on 21st and 8th and 9th, my wife and I, right in Chelsea.
I was just there the other night, 22nd and 8th, yeah.
Is that, what were you doing there?
John Hogan's a friend of mine.
Oh, I know
Circle
John
rep,
Hogan.
yeah, we'll see in Hogan.
Nice guy.
Yeah,
Nice
but
guy.
23rd and 7th, and, you know, it was one room, and there was a little, I had 2 locks on the door, and there was the big thing, you do that lock, and then there was a hole where you put whatever that kind of lock is. Whoever had lived there before had taken it with him, so there was this hole in the door, which, you know, I have a lock, I'm locked, so I don't really, I just got a hole in the door, nobody's gonna get in. So, you know, one night I'm sitting there on the couch, thank God, just reading, and I look up and there's an eye right in the door. I look and then the eye just takes off. Nobody broke in, nobody did anything, you know. It wasn't so bad.
So you started working right for at Circle Rep downtown.
Marshall put me right into a play. I was 21, right into the fall show. Richard Gere had been a play called The Farm by David Story, and English writer, and a family, an English family. Richard Gere was doing it in Chicago in the spring before Marshall came to do the Eastern Michigan thing. Richard's gonna not do it in New York because Richard's gonna go off and make Days in Heaven as his career is starting to do that. So Marshall doesn't have a guy. Here's this young 21-year-old guy out of Michigan. He's really good. I think I'll just put him in this first play at Circle Rep, which was great. I got my equity card like that. I got an agent just like that. And I got killed by the critics, absolutely murdered. I didn't know what I was doing.
Did you study at all? Did Marshall teach an acting class?
Over the next 2 years, yeah, after the reviews, yeah.
Right.
You got all kinds of classes then. But yeah, that was my grad school master's acting class. The stuff I use now, even today, and that I've passed along at the Purple Rose Theater Company is Marshall's stuff. And that was out of that 2 years at Circle, that first 2 years.
Could you, in 1 or 2 sentences, kind of define or clarify or share with the audience what you gained from Marshall?
Well, I don't, you know, honesty is what he demands. You know, he's got his 3 words, which are imagination, relaxation, and concentration. I don't care if you're standing in front of a film camera or you're on Broadway stage, it's the same thing. And so once you boil it down to that, plus he's got this thing called given circumstances, where have you been, where are you going, who are you, what, you know, do all that homework that he requires so that you can now say the first word. And it was kind of a method approach, but he had done some things to it. It just demands you to be as completely open and honest as possible. And what it ends up doing, which I found really helpful on film, was it forces you to listen and react. I mean, as Spencer Tracy said, it's not acting, it's reacting. And it's true. But film isn't set up for that. Film is set up for, I'm ready for my close-up. Look at me, look at me, look at me. And the closer that camera gets in, the tighter you become, it's like you think you're looking in front of you're in front of a mirror. And Marshall's teaching forces you to think the opposite. I remember Purple Rose of Cairo, the Woody Allen movie. You know, I was having, you know, trouble with it, and Woody, you know, he said, look, you've got Mia Farrow off camera. Adore her. And that's a very active, as directors know, it's a very active action to play. Adore Mia Farrow. So you just throw yourself at her with your eyes, and you just let it just pour out. And you're throwing it right at her. And so the closer the camera comes in, the more it sees that, versus let me act something, which ends up reading false. They said the same thing in Gettysburg, you know. Sam Elliott we saw the screening of it, and Sam says, he was talking about another actor in the movie, and he goes, when he's on camera, it's like the window, the eyes are windows, right? And he goes, when this actor's on camera, the windows are shut. We're not getting in. But when you're on camera, the windows are wide open and we're going in. They're coming in here. And that isn't anything you're doing except you're throwing it, it's the opposite, you're throwing it to them. You're making it all about them, which Hollywood and the close-ups and the look at me school of acting does not believe in.
Did you have any struggle in learning to open up? A lot of actors I teach in Los Angeles have lots of ideas of how to act, as well as are very closed off emotionally. Were you able to? I mean, did you struggle with that at all? Or?
I struggle with it every day, but you know, there's a time when you learn how to do it, and part of what helps and it helps on film, is there's so much money being spent every minute on a movie set. That forces you to do whatever it is you have to do to get wherever it is you have to go. I will kill anybody in my head to get myself where I have to be, so that when they say action on take one, it's pouring out, or I'm wherever I have to be. Everybody in my life is fair game. And if you're not willing to, and that's what Marshall taught, when you're sitting in those classes in those first 2 years, pretending, he stops and he goes, I need you to break down, and here are the 4 things I need you to think about to do it. You can take 2 minutes or 20 minutes and we'll come back in, but I want to see you do it, otherwise you're done. And if you don't do it, I've got 6 other guys that would love to do this part. So when you're in New York and you hear that, there's a line of people behind you, can't wait to get the opportunity to do the thing that you either can or cannot do. And you either can or cannot do it. And it just becomes, so do it or go home.
So did you feel ambitious to succeed in trying to create this career, or it sounds also as if that so many things were just coming your way as you were succeeding in what you were doing?
I failed miserably a bunch of times. You know, I did a lot of off-Broadway plays for 6 people. I mean, it was just horrible. But this is something that I wanted to do, and one of the movies I saw at Central Michigan was Dog Day Afternoon with Al Pacino, and we all have a movie that inspires us, and and that was the one. I went to see it 6 times and just said, whatever it is he's doing, I'm not doing it, and I want to learn how to do that, and I know I got to go to New York to do that. And that's when I said, somehow I'm getting to New York. Now, you know, Marshall was instrumental in keeping me there, because once I was there, I wanted to leave. But after 1 year and then 5 years, I was doing things to keep me there, like commercials. Other actor friends of mine were just, you know, waiting for Dad to send the check, you know, and waiting to be discovered. And I was doing commercials, you know, making money, living in the one room, doing those plays, and then finally, you know, next thing I know, I got 5th of July, or I've got Terms of Endearment. You know, Terms of Endearment was 6-7 years into New York.
Ragtime was before.
Yeah, that was like 2 scenes.
Right.
And that was I kind of was.
I don't remember. Did you work with Cagney in?
I was in the room.
We were in the room. What was that like?
Well, you know what was it? Not only was it, I mean, I was in the room when he shot his close-ups and stuff.
He hadn't acted for a long time.
No, and
for
he
like
was
20 years.
He was 81 at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember Kenny McMillan, the late Kenny McMillan, was playing
Great
the fire chief.
Right.
And so Kenny was cast. I was one of the policemen or whatever I was, and they weren't sure that Jimmy Cagney could do it. So in a studio on 42nd Street, TV studio, they brought Cagney down from his farm up in upstate New York.
That's right.
And we were just going to read through this 4-page scene in ragtime and see if he could do it. And I mean, he came in and with help and was seated, and they put the papers, and he, you know, it wasn't, I mean, there were 10-second pauses between each line. I mean, we were there 2 hours, and Kenny McMillan is ad-libbing and, you know, this, that, the other. And we're just going, this is, and you know, we were, let's just let Kenny and Jimmy do it. Jeff, you just go, and everybody we just sat off camera and watched. And Milos Forman, the director, boiled it down to a half a page. And then you could see on the monitors, you could see Cagney. And when he had his 3 lines down, you could see it.
Right.
Here it came, there, and you could just watch it go, there it is, there it is, there it is. And Milos said, good, we're going to be fine. You know, and that was it.
Right. I loved Cagney.
Yeah.
He was just terrific. I mean, people love James Cagney. I don't know. But yeah, James guy was just right. So, how did Terms of Endearment come about for you? Was that would that come as after working in the theater in New York and having this having this couple scenes in Ragtime? Would that be your first?
Terms was a huge break. I had done Ragtime, but that really didn't. You know, that was just I was in a movie. I was doing a play off Broadway, Three Sisters, Chekhov's Three Sisters. The reviews were god-awful. De Niro had done Raging Bull that year, so every actor in town was putting on 30 pounds.
Right. And still doing that, though.
Yeah.
Yes, the people are,
right.
You want to win an Academy Award is put on some weight.
God bless her.
That's right.
You know, hey, it worked. So, but yeah, so I'm, you know, to play Andre off Broadway, I'm porking. So now I get a call, you know, to go in and meet Juliet Taylor, was a huge casting director in New York. And she had been sending me out for 2 years. I mean, she, you know, you get close with a casting director, that's gold to them because you don't embarrass them. You actually, the director really considered these actors, and if you're one of these guys, then that makes her look good. So I was close and close and close and close. Well, now I'm in there, and I go in and read my little 2-minute thing for Terms of Endearment. Heavy.
Was Brooks there, or was this for
Jim was there. It was the end of 2 days in New York. He had seen guys for a week in LA. He had seen 500 guys for Flap. And I was at the end of his last day in New York, and I get 2 minutes, and I read the scene where Shirley's in the cafeteria, and I don't even know and Juliet Taylor's reading Shirley's part, or it wasn't even Shirley at the time. And you know, and that's it. Well, thank you very much for coming. Okay, great. And I leave, and then I hear it's me.
No.
Which is Jim Brooks. I mean, he sees one little glimmer of what he wants, and then and he said later, you were the only guy who made me believe that you had read all those books that Flap was supposed to have read.
And that's terrific.
Now, how do you walk in to an audition knowing that or doing that? And I wasn't even a reader, so it.
But you were an actor.
Apparently.
Right.
So, but then it was, you know, back into the, oh no, that was the audition. And then, yeah, and that was it. So I wasn't fat yet. So then 6 months later, I'm doing Three Sisters. Now I read in Liz Smith that Deborah Winger and Shirley MacLaine have been signed to do Terms of Endearment. I'm going, oh my God, is this true? I mean, because I thought, Jeff, you're the guy if I can get the money, is what I heard.
Gotcha.
And the stars. And so now we call Jim Brooks. And he goes, yeah, absolutely. We're going to have you read with Deborah in 2 weeks because she has casting approval. Well, I'm here. So I didn't eat for 2 weeks, and I was up to 6 miles a day running, just trying to run it off. And I went into Jim's apartment on Central Park West with Deborah. We were at every scene, and got it. You know, at the end, got it.
What was Deborah doing that she had approval in the? Had she done?
She had done Officer and a Gentleman.
She did that already. Okay.
Well, but that hadn't That was a month later. Because we were in rehearsals, and
then it came out.
It came out, and
Gotcha.
she was, of course,
Changed everything.
she was the Julia Roberts of her time at that moment,
Yeah.
which didn't make Shirley that happy.
No. So here you are in a.
That was a fun room to be in.
I try to stay away from when we do these talks to stay away from any dirt. So if you want to go there, I just leave it up to you.
Hey, they didn't leave. They stayed. They both stayed. Got nominated.
What was it like for you? What was it like for you to have gone from working off Broadway, off Broadway, putting on 30 pounds, and all of a sudden you're in a major motion picture with Nicholson and Deborah Winger and everybody. I mean, what was that like for you as a Michigan guy and then also as an actor?
Well, there's nothing that can really prepare you for it. All you can do is, at the end, is the work. Between action and cut, that I can do, I think. There's some mechanical stuff with the camera I'm learning as I go on that movie, but other than that, acting is acting, and that's what I just clung to. And being a theater actor, which is highly useful for film actors, because if you can do a show 5 to 6 to 8 times a week, week after week, you can be good on take 12. Because you know how to make it happen for the first time over and over and over and over. There are film actors that are dead after 5 takes. Dead, gone, over, finished. And that helped me a lot because, well, there's Jack, there's Shirley, there's Deborah.
Does this mean you won't be knitting the baby any booties?
They were, Jack, it bought me 2 weeks with Jack. You're from New York. Yeah, I'm a New York actor. Yeah, and I remember I was the last one to meet him on the set. And he couldn't have been nicer, but Deborah dragged me over there, and he said, "What have you done?" I said, "Well, Broadway, some off Broadway,
Hubbada.
Yeah, hubbada." And he goes, "Well, this ain't Broadway. This is the pro game." And it was kind of like, I'll get your coffee, and but years later, and it's true. There are times. It's every time the camera rolls, it's opening night. Sometimes it's first day of rehearsal, last day of rehearsal, opening night, and closing night, because there is that's all right there, and you learn how to do that instead of let it beat you. But he was right, and it's when it's 4:45 in the morning, and it's on you, and it's the big close-up, and you've got to deliver it, and the sun is coming up, and it's your last day on this location, and the crew is just going, "Would you get it? Just get it, just get it." And the director is going, "Please, please, please." And if you hit it, it's like hitting the free throw at the end of the game or the shot at the end of the game, and that's what I think he meant.
What kind of set did Brooks? Did you guys rehearse at all? I know Jim back in Los Angeles.
Did you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Do you? Yeah. Well, this was his first time.
Was this his first film?
First film
from after television.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that.
Well, yeah, and there was a visor.
Right.
There was a clipboard. There was tape on the floor, like we do in the theater.
Sure.
And we're in a little room on Paramount's lot, and we're going to work the scene where Shirley tells Deborah that you can't marry Flap, and here are the 6 reasons, and we're going to rehearse this. And I've flown out. I've got $1,000 in the bank. Rent's $700 a month. And Deborah walks in and sees the tape and rips the tape up off the floor, puts it into a ball, says, "This ain't theater." So they sit down and they're getting ready to
At a table read?
Yeah, no, just kind of read it with the script. And Shirley basically talks for a paragraph and Deborah listens. Well, all the way through this litany of why you can't marry Flap is Deborah spewing these, obscenities towards, what, I mean, no,
Right.
yes, I can't. What are you talking about? The hell with you? Yes, I can. And Shirley finally just goes, is she going to do that? I'm sorry, is she? Because I'm trying to, if we're going to, and now all of a sudden I got two major stars talking to Jim and his visor and his clipboard at the same time, and I'm going, it's over. This is over. Then the phone rang, and Jim took the call, and he goes, we got Jack.
Uh-huh.
And from that moment on, the girls were okay.
Right.
It's true. I watched it all happen. And that's what kept him on the set, because Jack was Jack, and so, but Jim is he's a writer first, and he'll try it again, he'll do this, he'll try this, and he's so smart, that, and they all responded to it, and he pushed them, and they pushed him, and it was a wild set. It really was. There was a lot going on.
Kind of jumping around, how did here you are working for Jim. Jim is also, he's so bright and he's so creative, but he's, as they say in Yiddish, he's a real meshugana. So
I was Tevi in The Fiddler on the Roof.
there you go. That's right. And then you end up working with Woody Allen.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
Oh,
Would you share?
oh my God! It was great. It was, that Michael Keaton was doing the role initially, and they'd shot for 2 weeks, and for whatever reasons I didn't ask, that wasn't going to be any longer. And I was told it was mutual. So great. I go in, I screen test. I stand with Mia. I do the 2 scenes. I'm not told what the movie's about. I've got Michael Keaton's safari hat on and safari. Okay, well, if it's, we'll talk to you tomorrow, one way or the other. But
there's also Juliet Taylor.
Juliet Taylor,
Right,
because Juliet, Michael's not going to do it anymore. Get some. Kevin Kline went in.
Right.
Eric Roberts went in. And then I got in there, and the next day we get the phone call. It's you. And can I get a script? And Woody doesn't give out scripts. You just get the sides each day, and then he'll just tell you.
So when you get a side each day, do you?
Well, but I didn't, because as it turns out, I was the next day, Thursday, and my agent says, come by the office at 5 o'clock. Woody's got a meeting with the studio at 5 o'clock. What Woody wants, Woody gets.
Sure.
5:15, we'll get a phone call. It's going to be great. 5 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock, 7:15, no call. I walk back up to 82nd Street. At that time, that's where I'm living. Walk in, Kathleen hangs up the phone. You got it. The studio had wanted Woody to rewrite it for himself.
Oh, no.
And Woody said, no, it's this. He'll be fine. He's a no name. It doesn't matter. Come on. And so that worked out great. And then I get the script, the whole script, with a gun to my head saying, if you breathe a word of this to anybody, you're fired. And I got not one but 2 roles. It's the 2 parts.
It's a great film.
It's one thing to get in a Woody Allen movie. Every actor wants that.
Right.
And he's so, first day of the set, he goes, look, this isn't the Bible. If there's something you want to change or say differently, just do it. And if it doesn't work, I'll tell you. But that just makes you want to make what he has written work all the more, at least for me. And there are scenes where he really just cut me loose. There's a scene where I'm on the stoop with Mia as the Hollywood actor, and I'm telling her what it's like to be a star, and what's written is about 4 lines, and he just go, and it was great for me after 4 months of shooting with Woody to, off the corner of my eye, see Woody cracking up off camera.
That's great.
So that was a personal victory.
Was your head spinning at all from all of this success and working? I know when we first started talking, you thought that, well, I'll do a couple of films and it'll be over. But on the other hand, here you are in these, major successful motion pictures, and a lot of actors, when they get successful, so much is going on. How were you able to kind of keep yourself grounded?
Well, a part of it was Circle Rep, who considered film to be a lesser art form.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had that drummed into me for a couple of years. The other thing that really helped slow down the ego train was Terms of Endearment and the Oscars. As a friend of mine said, everybody got nominated except you. Even the guy who combed your hair got nominated. So as you're scaling up this mountain, all of a sudden everybody gets to go to the party and you're back in New York in front of the television. And it was humbling, but at a perfect time. If I got nominated Best Supporting or something, which Lithgow did,
Right.
I mean, that was even, George DeZunza was doing the part. We were in Nebraska, and this George had wardrobe problems, and maybe he didn't like the part, and all of a sudden Friday it's George, and Monday it's John, and here's Lithgow, and he shoots for a week, and hey, John, good to see you, and he gets nominated, But I'm over it. So all of that,
Right.
stops you, so that you don't expect it all to be like this. It had been 7 years too, so it wasn't like I moved to New York and suddenly.
No, sure.
But and the Woody thing is, you go a month and then you find out if you're going to be fired or not. And you aren't, so you go another month, and you go, and it's going to work. Does he like what I'm doing? Yes, he does. Just keep doing what you're doing. Just keep doing, So there's this, and it really helped me to work with people who were up here. Jack, Deborah, Shirley, Jim, Brooks, Woody, Mike Nichols was early. Marshall and Lanford, to me, are up there, still are. So I never got in here thinking I was better than anybody. I was always lucky to be there. Mouth shut, eyes open, ears open,
And were you, at what time did you then decide to come back to Michigan and leave New York?
We had 82nd in Columbus. We had a one-bedroom, and we had a 2-year-old boy who was starting to bounce off the walls. The phone was starting to ring. It was right before I did Something Wild, which I think was movie number 4 or 5 or 6, something like that. So we gambled that the phone would ring enough. And so we just made the move. The previous 2 summers, we had gone home for the summer and stayed 4 months the first time. The second summer, we went back end of April and stayed till October in this little cottage in Chelsea on a lake. So we were kind of already doing it anyway. So in '86, we just bought a house and let the apartment go.
Were you worried that by moving out that you may have shot yourself in the foot and you'd disappear, people wouldn't know you? Or
Yeah, but my agent said, if you're willing to get on an airplane at your own expense and fly to LA for a meeting, then I don't care where you live. But don't ever tell me you can't afford it or you don't want to. If it's an offer, I'll go, but if it's just a meeting or an audition, I won't. Don't tell me that, otherwise we'll have a problem. So if you can do that, and I did. And they were great because the career was at a point where I was getting some offers. And so those trips out to, as I call it, dance, they weren't that many. It wasn't like I was flying to LA twice a month, so it worked out.
Let me throw some questions in from the people who are attending, which I like to do, not to save it all until the end. We kind of touched some of these here. Let me see. Elaine Strutz. Hi, Elaine. She wants to know, what qualities do you like in a director, and is there anything that you don't like?
It kind of depends where you are, but where I am is we're supposed to know what we're doing as an actor. I'm supposed to know how to do all that. So, I'm not looking for somebody to give me a result or a line reading, which, what don't you like? The line reading is just, that's the first sign of a bad director. But anybody that can tell you what he or she wants in 5 words or less, That's hard to do for a director, but the good ones do that. Also, knowing when not to direct, when to just say, do it again, or just try it again. That thing you were doing, just go further with that. You know, get your hands off them. We're horses, let us go. And, you know, if you do that, we'll go all over the place, and then you've got something to corral, to work with, you know. But if it's the guys that before the actors even had a chance to kind of organically or whatever, just kind of let it go, that got their hands on you and they're controlling you and, you know, all that stuff, you're really taking a lot away from the actor.
I find that was good. Is that good? Was that good? You had Jeff Daniels answer your question? Yeah. Also, that a sense of trust on the set.
Yeah, I mean, you want to completely trust the director to give he or she everything, you know, everything, all parts of you. You talked about being open, all that stuff that you were doing in Marshall's class. You want to do either in front of the camera or in the rehearsal room or on the stage, and let the director be the one who decides. I mean, you're the worst. That's directors. The worst kind of actors, and I worked with a bunch of them at Circle, and you just knew they weren't going to make it. Was they were directing themselves in their heads. Guy Sandville, who's the artistic director of the Purple Rose Theater Company, is here, and they've got an exercise, an acting class, which is it's called Fire the Judge. And if you're constantly judging yourself, you know, I know guys that you're on stage with them and they're planning, or I didn't like what I just did there, but I'm going to do something really good now.
They're not there with you.
Yeah, they're not there. And the best actors, and Marshall, this is the thrust of his thing, are instinctive. You don't judge, you just go, and I know you wanted me to sit in the chair, but I didn't do it. I was over here. I can sit in the chair. No, that was good. The thing you did, you found that. Just go. Emotionally, physically,
sure.
All that stuff. And let them, you know, give them something to work with. But if you're going to sit back and hold back, then it's like you got a leash on yourself.
Nothing worse than having a critic in your head
judging
you what you're doing, and it's very tough for a young actor to break through that.
Yeah,
you really need to grade out.
And a thing on critics too, God bless them, you know, they're making a living. But if I really, you know, I don't read reviews. I can't. I just can't. They're never, you know, it's the cliche. The good ones are never good enough, and the bad ones are horrible and worse than they really are. But if I really, really wanted the critic involved, I'd have him at the first reading.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have him in the rehearsal room. I'd have him when we were on the set. That's when I need you, not after all the work's done. And so, and that's not, you know, and they're really not there for me.
Mm-hmm.
They're there for the guy that's trying to debate whether he's going to spend $10 on a movie or not, which is great. Which is terrific. That's wonderful. If you want to read a review and 80% of it's the story of the thing you're going to see, great.
Do you have a friend or a colleague that you trust, that you prepare with or work with, or you need feedback, you're having difficulty in a particular play or film that you use?
No, well, as a playwright, it's Guy. Guy and I are just, you know, joined at the hip. I mean, we're working on a play right now that, I mean, we just had a very exciting afternoon where the reading of the play was just god-awful. And we sat in the office, and the two of us, you know, collaborated on this thing that we're doing together, which is great. As an actor, I'm such a, you know, if I'm acting in a play, then it's the director. As an actor, I try to do the homework on the director as well.
In choosing a part?
Yeah. Who's the director? Do I trust him or her? Do I like their work? That's a luxury I have now. I didn't have that starting out. You know, I was with some idiots, but now I'm able to do that, so that I'll trust them totally, you know. I just did this TV thing You know, we did a remake of The Goodbye Girl,
Right.
Neil Simon. So Richard Benjamin's the director, and Richard really knows comedy. So I'm doing, and then it's to him. He goes, yeah, slow it down just a little bit. Okay, there's no discussion, there's no why. You don't ask why. Why is not a question that an actor ever asks a director. You just say, my thing is okay. Now, directors on movie sets go, what's wrong with Jeff? All he ever says is okay. You know, well, we're on to the next take. You want it nuts. Here's the first take is mad, the second one's sad, the third one's orange, the fourth one's green, the fifth one's blue. Which one do you want now? You know, that's my job, and it's hard to do because in star school you learn not to do that. In star school, it's all about, well, you let me decide what's best. Because it's my ass up on screen, and if I decide, you know, I'm the one that's got to protect the integrity of, you know, so please. You know, it's all guesswork. Film is all guesswork. You never have enough rehearsal, and you know what? As someone who's wrote, acted, directed 2 indies, I've been in an editing room where that's a whole final draft of your script.
Sure.
And you wish you had asked the actor to do it one different way. So when you're on a set, you're just gathering raw footage. You're just throwing stuff at the lens. Yeah, there's craft. Yeah, you're doing the best you can. And yeah, there's an art to what you're doing. And you may take one idea and do 4 variations on it. But you're just giving him so that when he or she goes into the editing room, they've got choices. Because if they've got choices, they have options, and they are covering your ass.
Right.
And because if you don't do that, and all you did was your one way, because in star school, I'm right, and this is absolutely the only way to do it, then you get to that scene, and it's the wrong way to do it, which you really can't understand until you get into the editing room at that point in the process. The star's screwed.
Yes. Let me ask, read another
That was a
question.
long-winded thing there.
John Brusky? John? There you are. I only saw a hand. But John's way back there. What would be the best advice you could give a young actor wanting to pursue a career?
Career in what?
John, a career in what?
In acting?
It's a good question.
Everything you can possibly do here in this area. Everything. And you have more options than I did. You have a thing called a digital video camera, which pretty much everybody can afford. And you can even make your own little movies, which aren't going to be seen by anybody, but it allows you to learn what editing is. It allows you to learn how to act in front of a camera, how you look in front of a camera, what a close-up looks like, what a long shot looks like. All that stuff is stuff that you can do, and you're just burning tape. I mean, that's great master's class, on your feet experience. Any theater you can do will help you. Get as good as you can get here. If you can make it happen here for you, great. There are commercials, there are voiceovers, all that stuff. But if you're going to go to Chicago, New York, or LA, certainly New York or LA, you're going to need some money. Because life isn't cheap there. And then you really need to be honest with yourself. You need to sit in a room by yourself and know that I am good enough or I'm not. Am I better than Al Pacino? No, but do I think I can get where he is? Yes. Then you go. If you can't, if you're fooling yourself, don't go. Don't waste your money. Go do something else. Because once you get out there, you know, I mean, even the Tigers, but you're trying to play for the Yankees. That's where you're going. And believe me, they got people. I tell college kids this all the time, you know, well, I'm going to move to New York in June. Oh, really? That's great. In May, everybody who starred in Hamlet at every college across the country is going to move there. So they'll be there a month before you. But you don't. God bless you. I wish you the best, you know. And You've got to want it. There has to be a focus and an ambition and a drive, not to mention talent. That all has to be there. You will do anything it takes to see this through, because you will need that. As we know, New York is littered with people that went there expecting to be discovered. You can't expect anything. You have to work for everything. And which is great from being from Michigan, is that, you know, that whole work ethic is real strong. It was in me, it is in everybody around here. And that will serve you well. I've sat in waiting rooms with Kevin Kline and Eric Roberts and Mandy Patinkin and Peter Weller. Those were kind of my guys. We always kind of ended up, you know, in the final battle, you know. And
It's like gladiators.
well, you know, young guns,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and it was, you know, they're all great guys, but you know, enough with the yes. When I was in London doing Hamlet, it was a wonderful production. Gielgud came to see it, and I'm just like going, "Fuck you, piece of shit." You know, I'm just rocking. Let me in there. Let me in there. Let me in there. I didn't always get it, but I got terms of endearment.
It's important to what we're talking about is to be involved. The more involved you can be, and keep working and keep growing and keep challenging yourself. And if it's meant to be, it's going to be meant to be. But when the day is done, you want to make sure that you gave it your best shot. Because if you've given it your best shot, and if it's not going to happen, you could then go on with your life. But if you don't, then you're always wondering, you know, if I could have, I should have, well, I didn't really. And so get involved no matter what the project might be, and act. And if it's being an actor, then act anywhere, anytime. I do these seminars in Los Angeles for about being a working actor, and we bring in other working actors to discuss it, and that is maybe the one key thing that everyone talks about. Just being involved, creating projects, and doing what you're there to do, right?
You know, the other thing too is you're going to get 2 minutes. You know, my 2 minutes, there were several, but the big 2 minutes was that 2 minutes with Jim Brooks 7 years into New York. There was a big 2 minutes with Marshall Mason, but if you want to look at a big break, and it was 2 minutes. So 7 years, and then now you got 2 minutes, and you have to deliver. So learn everything you possibly can and have it ready at a moment's notice. Because you never know when you're going to be in that 2 minutes. So when you walk on stage, and the other thing too on auditioning, it's really not that difficult. They're going to choose you a lot on physicality and whether you're right for the part and this and that and the other thing. But you're there to solve their problem. And if you can get that in your head, it doesn't have to be ego and confidence or overconfident and all that. We're all here because they've got a problem. They've got this part and they don't have an actor to fill it. Good news, I'm here. And here's what I think I'd do with it. And make some nice, big, strong choices. Half of them are going to be wrong. And if you get lucky, a director who's any good will go, hang on a second, could you just do it this way and now do it this? And as an actor, you need to make the change immediately to that, and that. Right there. Because that will show them that you can be directed. They may have no intention of doing it that way. They just want to see if you are pliable, and you want to show them that you are.
Would you go on with this answer as an actor and as a director yourself? When you're casting something with your pal, how you go about casting because you've been on both sides of the table.
Well, theater, it's a little in theater. We have a company of actors, so I'll not only look for choices they make, but that little talk you give before you actually do the audition piece is almost more important.
Who they are, you mean?
Yeah, you try to get a sense of the personality. That all goes into, does that fit the character that you have in the back of your head, whether you've written it or not. So that's all part of it. Some of it's just instinct. Certainly, if they've got some experience, that helps. And
Well-
on film, it becomes more about a look, you know. And it's also short little things. If it's a smaller part, and I'm just looking for a pop of a certain kind of type, can he or she act as well? Oh, good, great, you're hired. I don't spend a lot of time on it. You know, it needs to. Usually, when it walks in the door, I know what it is.
Since we're here in Detroit and discussing acting, and you bring up your theater company, do people audition to get into your theater company? Do you have open auditions, regular auditioning, or somebody wants to get involved?
It's harder to get on our stage now than it was, say, 10 years ago. We're almost 14 years old. So, yeah, we have, you know, open auditions once a year, I think. You know, I think we got them coming up here at the end of April. So anybody can walk in and do their 2 minutes of this, 2 minutes of that. So they get their shot, yeah.
And what about if you were a writer and they had written something? I know somebody had a question in there about that.
We have a lot of unsolicited plays that we will we'll accept. We're getting a little more picky about that. We were getting 500 a year, so now we'll take a synopsis and, you know, 10 pages of give me 10 pages of the dialogue plus a synopsis of your story, number of characters, things like that, which will get a quicker response.
So how many shows are you doing a year?
Four a year.
All new plays?
Not all, but I think we're. I think our percentage over the 13 years, I think we're about 75% new work, which is an extension of what Circle Rep was. You know, so that's. I mean, we're just trying to do that out here. We get screenplays are just. You know, I'm not.
Right.
You know, I'm not doing. You know, we'll get people that will send screenplays to the theater, and we'll just send them back.
Sure. We'll go back a little bit back towards your film career. You talked about Richard Benjamin and Goodbye Girl, which was just on. Did you have any? How did you go about working on that, knowing whether I don't know how much you knew or didn't know or to pay attention to that Dreyfuss had done it and was a a major success. He won an Academy Award, didn't he?
Won an Oscar.
He did, right? He did pretty well then.
Yeah.
Any trepidations about going about it and doing it?
Oh, a couple, yeah. Yeah, he, Richard called and said, we're going to do I guess, why?
Right.
I mean, people, you know, it was 1977, he said, it was 6 years ago. You know, the last guy who did it, Jeff, won an Oscar, but we think you can really bring, oh, great, okay. So, we just decided to go at it a little differently. You know, Marsha Mason was great, but Patty Heaton's different. So that's a different element.
Sure.
The script wasn't going to change. There were a couple references to FedEx and cell phones, but other than that, you know, it's just a remake. And then I started, well, on Broadway, you know, they do, you know, they'll do
Right.
O'Neill
Revivals.
again and revivals, and why not? It has been a while. So I remember the movie coming out, and then I got the DVD, and I watched it once just to get those half-dozen signature Richard Dreyfuss moments so I could flag those. So when I got up to them, I could do anything completely different. And I didn't, you know, there was one thing that they insisted I do, which was to pull the thing off the show, and I was like, okay. Because Neil said that I came up with that, you know, even though Richard did it. It was like, okay, all right, I'll do that one, but, you know, Buffo, you know, that thing, I did something different there. So, you know, there were these little planning, you know, where you go, and here I do this, so that got me through it. And then, you know, with Patty, that made it different, and we just played leading man versus character schlub.
Did you rehearse it as a play and then film it out of sequence?
No, we had about 3 or 4 days of rehearsal where Richard, which is a lot for film, where we staged, you know, the drunk scene, some of those the first week of shooting we staged and kind of worked. Certainly not as if it were a play where, you know, you really work it. And Neil has got, there's so many words. And it was a television thing, so, you know, Richard and Marcia shot theirs in, I'm guessing, 8 weeks. We shot ours in 5. So every day was minimum 14, sometimes 20, 22 hours. So when you're rattling through this Neil Simon stuff, and you always hear the direction, all right, this time really good, just faster. And with Neil, he's a word watcher. And if you...
Ask Mary Tyler Moore.
Yeah.
Right.
If you fump for one word, let's try it again, you know? So...
Was he on the set?
No, he wasn't. He had some health issues, so but he
Right.
was looking at dailies. They'd ship him dailies every day, so we were definitely, you know, under the watchful eye.
How did you go about memorizing if you had so much text?
I had 2 months. I got the job in 2 months, which was a luxury. So I just, thanks for the script, and I 8 pages a day.
Right.
And just, you know, tomorrow I'm doing the next 8 and the next 8 until by the time I flew to Vancouver, where we shot all the interiors, I had the whole script down, which is, I've never, for a film, I've never done
Right.
that. I've
Right,
done
it's a section.
scenes, you know, like
Right.
Gettysburg, there were some big speeches. So I'd have those a few weeks ahead of time, but usually it's 2-3 days ahead.
When we talk about Gettysburg, and I read in some of the production notes about, maybe you'd share with our people here how you went about doing background on the character and how you were able to bring that into your work. You went to Maine. And
Yeah, I played Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, and I had never heard of him. Not that big a student of the Civil War, but became one. And you know, there were many books written about everybody who's ever done anything in the Civil War, and so Chamberlain had, you know, easily 6-7 books that were that I poured through those books on the 20th Maine. He has. In the state of Maine, there is Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, and then there's Jesus. This guy was a 4-term governor. He's fluent was fluent in 7 languages. He was the president of Bowdoin College. He has a historical society where it's just all Chamberlain, his boots, the saddle, the sword. You go to his grave, you know. So I show up a month before shooting and see the... I think her name was Julie at the Historical Society, a wonderful young woman. Her whole life was Chamberlain. And, you know, I'm in a Tiger baseball cap and a Hawaiian shirt and shorts and, you know, the Hollywood schmuck who's going to ruin their, you know. And, you know, as an actor, you want to play the good, the bad, the strong, the weak. What are his flaws? He's got to have some weaknesses, you know, just so you can, you know, make him a human being. So I asked her, I said, you know, what are his flaws? And she said, well, he doesn't have any. Okay. And it was difficult to find someone who would even entertain the thought that, well, maybe he had a marriage thing that might have been driving him to do this and that. So then I finally went to Gettysburg a week before shooting, and Little Round Top is where he fought the big famous battle in his career, and one of them. And I went to the Saturday night, got in the hotel. Sunday morning, drove out to Little Round Top, went up on the hill. There are these trees. There's the 20th Maine Monument. There's nobody there, no tourists. It's raining. It was like a cathedral. I swear to God, you could feel a presence. If you've been on a Civil War battlefield, you can kind of let that happen to you. And I promised him I wouldn't screw it up.
Did going to the actual Gettysburg site have, well, you're kind of touching on it, it's maybe you just answered it, but an effect on you as an actor, as a person, change your view of the world? Gettysburg is such a monumental historical event in our country's life.
Well, and yeah, and that whole war was. And just getting a whole sense of where we came from, and, you know, Lincoln, and you know, why the South was doing what it was doing, and just the whole history of it. I mean, it was really it pulled me back into the history of the country, but it personalized it with Chamberlain and why he went, and the nobility these guys, and the courageousness of these guys. I mean, they marched off to war waving, "See you in a few weeks, and
Johnny
I'll come
comes
back."
marching home,
Oh
right?
man,
Yeah.
and they're it just.
They had a lot of Civil War reenactors in that.
Yeah, those guys really made the movie better because as our extras, we had guys that do this on weekends, and
Right.
you know, you can make fun of them, and you know, I'm getting a sandwich at the catering thing, and I gotta go, "Colonel Chamberlain?" Yeah. And they got,
Was he trying to cut in line?
no, just, it's an honor to serve under you, sir. It's like, okay, all right, here, have a Diet Coke.
We didn't have Diet Cokes back then, sir.
Right, I'd have gotten that. I'm going, yeah, drink it anyway. But but you know what? What they were. Look, we are into this. Beam us back, transport us. You're our Chamberlain, and they wanted me. They wanted me to do well. And some of those first scenes. There's a scene on the hill with 300 guys that want to defect, or not defect, but take off, and I've got to do this speech, and it was early in the shoot, and these guys have been studying the Civil War for years, reenacting, and a lot of the guys on that hill had come down from the state of Maine to be involved with the Chamberlain stuff. And so here's this actor who's going to do Chamberlain, and we're fighting the light, sun's going down. Just go. We'll do the master, we'll do the close-ups tomorrow. Go. Jeff, do the big speech. I mean, it's 3 pages. Go, rolling, like that. And I walk out there in front of these guys from Maine, and they're all acting, but they're going, "Let's see it."
Right. Prove it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pro game.
Yeah.
So I drilled them.
Excellent.
It was great. That was we had producer problems that day too.
It's nothing like being on the set when you hit it, and the crew is pulling for you, and
We've got a Chamberlain. That's
Yeah.
what they walked away going, "We've got a Chamberlain. We've got a Chamberlain. All right, get away from me. Get away from me. Relax. I got to do the close-ups tomorrow."
Let's take another question here. This from Doug Sosha. Right here. Hey, Doug. How can an actor ever dream of stopping, even when all people say give it up? What's to keep the dream alive when no calls come?
Well, that's never going to stop. It gets easier. It depends kind of what you're shooting for. There's always something you can do. It's the nature of the business. I just went through it. 2.5 months of, "We'll get you something. Between January and June, we'll get you something." Absolutely. And there's stuff out there. Jeff, you want to work? Well, you work. So the phone won't ring sometimes. That's the life you're choosing. There is no answer for how to make that easier. Other than, you can't, you have to continue to believe in yourself. If you have something to believe in. If you don't.
Keep my day job.
Yeah. And you know what? I've made 35 films, and we've had some guys come out of the state of Michigan and succeed, I mean, I guess you could count Robin. He was here for a while. But Tommy Hulse and, on the musician side, we've got Kid Rock, Eminem, we got Ted Nugent, Seeger, of course. There are others, whomever I'm forgetting. But the actors, how many? So what are the odds? That's what you're going after. Now, that's if you're going national and international. You're trying to play center field for the Yankees, or even in the major leagues. But if your goals are a little lower, where you just want to work, you want to do independent films in the Midwest area, whether it's Chicago, Detroit. I know some guys who are trying to do a film. You want to do theater, you want to do stuff. You can have a great creative life right here. The Purple Rose is full of people who are very, very talented, who, if they had gotten the breaks or spent the 15 years in New York, might be working in movies all the time, or Broadway. But they chose not to. you know, or they didn't get the break I did, or in their 2 minutes it went by them. It happens. But you can have a great creative life as an actor wherever you are. It doesn't have to involve being at the Oscars once a year, said someone who's never been nominated. And you know what? You know, you sit there in front, in my case, you sit in front of the Oscars, or you sit in front of that phone and you go, I'm good. I'm still good. I'm good. It'll ring, you know. Or you know what? I'm going to do that job I hate, but you know what? I got to work. I got to make money. So you do that gig, and that's all right. It's not more experience. I learned more about the camera on that one. Piece of shit movie, but I learned a lot about how to deal with a bad producer, or, you know, you'll always learn something, you know.
A friend of mine did a Broadway play called Tribute with Jack Lemmon, and when they were in Hollywood, they did the play in Hollywood, and Jack came over to my friend Joan's house, and they're having lunch. Joan made for Jack, and he's very down, and she notices it, and she says, "Jack, what's wrong? You know, you're always such an up kind of guy." Jack Lemmon was just a terrific actor, and Jack says, "I'm not working. I don't know when I'm going to get another job." We're talking about Jack Lemmon, and it's Jeff so eloquently put it, is it's part and parcel with the territory, and you've got to just keep fighting. You got to keep up the good fight.
It's good to hear it even have his day list.
What's that?
It even have his day list.
Well, no, but those of us on the D and C and F and K lists, if I see Hanks on another talk show, I'm gonna get a gun. There are guys that just don't have any problem, but you know what, they've set themselves up, and that's great, yeah, you're right, yeah, the phone will not ring sometimes, and you just got to hang on to, and it's hard, it's difficult. I mean, I'm getting older, so it's you get guys that are younger, and you go through this thing of I'm too old now, well, you're not, shut up, and the phone will ring, and there it is, and it's something that you want to do, local, regional, whatever, and you do it. But it's okay to be a little scared. We all are.
That's very true. Nicole Newman. Nicole, around? Left? Not here? Oh, back there. Hi, Nicole. What is the most important lesson you've learned in your career? Nicole has two questions, I see.
What's the other one?
Okay. For an actor just beginning in film and television, what is the most important advice or suggestion you would... Well, we kind of touched on that. Sorry, Nicole. That question...
Oh, what have I learned?
Well, how about...
I don't know, how important theater is. No, I'll tell you what I learned. The best people in the business there is no ego. There are no power trips. There are no games being played. They come in and they don't know either. They're guessing too. Jack Nicholson on the set of Terms of Endearment. You want me to wave at this point, or because I don't know if I should wave or not wave. If I wave, try one where you wave. I'm gonna wave. All right. Doesn't know. I was sitting there going, Jack should know that he should either wave or not wave, but he didn't know. Meryl Streep works her way through it. The really good people do the work. They do all the stuff that if you've taken acting classes, they're all doing that stuff. They're all applying that stuff. They aren't coasting on looks or fame. It's the mediocre who are the pains in the asses, who are late, who are unprofessional, who don't know their lines, who ask you, are you going to do it that way? Those are the mediocre people, and they're the most problems. That's the one that I learned that, and like I was saying earlier, I had the best in the business early. The people, and if you look at my films, you know, the first 6, 7 were just A-list, you know? And man, did I get taught, not only off camera, but on camera. And it's pro, on time, know your lines, all that stuff, and let's do the work. And wide open to whatever you might be doing. The mediocre are the opposite.
Jeff, what about working with Clint Eastwood? You know, in Mystic River, you know, everyone spoke of him. I mean, Tim Robbins and Sean Penn spoke of him with such idolatry as a director working with actors. What was your experience, and how was he? Obviously, very different from someone like Woody Allen.
Yeah, yeah, he was. In that Clint is famous for doing it once. You get one take. Sometimes you rehearse it on film, and we cut, and that was it. So it can be a big speech, it can be a walk and talk, whatever. You're going to get 1, maybe 2 cracks at it. If he goes a third time, he apologizes for it taking so long. And that's Clint, because behind what he's doing is not only is there a speed and an urgency and a be ready and be good right away thing that he's got going. You know, our job as actors is to make it look like it's happening for the first time. Well, with Clint, it happens for the first time. Good, bad, ugly, whatever it is, that's what, he grabs it. And
Unintended there, I think.
Well, sort of. But he grabs it and he goes, thank you very much. Well, I can do better. I'm sure you can, but it happened for the first time right here, and I've got it. We're moving on. And you come in ready. And he's just a pleasure. And he's so easy and likable, the same deal. I mean, he's just, ask him anything. He'll tell you what it was like to play Misty for me and how the Warner Brothers didn't want him to do, you know, he'll relate it to what you're going. Couldn't have been more helpful and nice and wonderful.
So in your directing career, in the 2 independent films that you've directed, I'm sure it's been a hodgepodge of taking things from directors that you've admired and brought that to your work. Can you discuss that for us, your style of directing for yourself?
Well, I got better in the second one. The first one was weird. It was based on Escanaba and the Moonlight was a play that we had done. It was wildly successful, so we put that on. So it was kind of recreating that play. And a lot of the guys that were in the play were also playing those roles in the movie. So they had already literally had 500 performances under their belt. So just do that thing that you've been doing. Now just do it here, you know. Guy had directed the plays, and so they were, you know, they were kind of there. As a director, I kind of like to create what I call little train wrecks. You know, as a writer, you're always writing towards conflict, and as a director, you try to create these little, whether they're physically we get in the way or, you know, opposites. You create conflict in everything you're doing, and also you try to, you know, just if you can whisper into somebody's ear, you know, just keep it honest. Rolling, you know, that's all you got to say to a good actor, and then out he comes with something that's not only funny but truly believable. You know, and I try to let them do the work, and then, you know, after a few times, if they don't, then here I come, you know.
And in the second film, you're mentioning in how you grew as a director from one film to the next.
Yeah, I got better with the camera, or I got a little more adventurous with the camera a little bit. We just had a lot of fun with that second one. I knew what editing was by that point. The second one, I really knew what the editing room was. At the end of shooting, I knew I was only 1/3 of the way home. Where as an actor, you shoot a movie, you get to the end of the shoot, man, this is the end of the road. There's the finish line. Isn't it great? We all made it. The director is 1/3 of the way. Now we're into editing, which is the second third. Then there's this whole thing called sound and the final mix and color timing and all of that, which is a whole other third. I don't know how many movie sets I've been on where the camera guy, there's always camera versus sound. You know, the guy with the boom is trying to get the best sound he can so he doesn't have to loop it later. And as an actor, you want him to get the mic where he can, you know, where he's happy with it. And you got the camera guys going, get the mic up, you know. And they're always shaking their head at these poor boom guys. And I don't know how many camera guys I've heard say, you know, nobody goes to hear a movie.
Are you doing post here in Detroit?
I did a lot of the post. I did everything except the final mix. I cut it at home on a computer, which everybody does now. And the sound, the looping, and the initial sound we did up at Harvest Music and Sound up in Lansing. Steve Curran's got a shop up there. Alto Reed did the music on both films. Alto was the sax player in Seeger's band. So that was a pleasure to work with Alto and just see him construct the music and fit it to the scene and things like that. So that was out of Alto's studio in his house. So we gather all of that, then we go to New York and sit in that final mix room for 3 weeks and put all the elements onto the picture.
Now, did you use the same director of photography for both films?
Yeah.
All
these guys were Detroit guys. Rich Brower shot it. He was up out of Traverse City, but you know, Spike Sims is a great lighting guy and did a lot of DP work, to be honest, on both films. And they were all Detroit guys. 95% of our crews and casts were 90 to 95% were Michigan.
Did you, when you go to shoot on, every day you show up on the set, and you know what pages that you need to shoot, have you blocked it out in your mind's eye? Did you do any sketching? How influenced are you by the director of photography and then showing up on the set and going, oh, well, I thought it one thing, and the actors are running the lines, I need to change it?
Well, you got to have a plan, because we're fighting the clock, especially in an indie. But, you know, I don't storyboard. Carol Ballard is a really good director who directed a movie I did called Fly Away Home. And Carol kept the whole movie in his head, you know. He wouldn't share it with anybody, which was great. You know, what do you need me to do today, Carol? Need you over there. All right, I'll be over there. So by doing a big storyboard, that only invites a committee, you know. So I said, no, I got it. But I had I had a shot list for everything, which I went over with my first AD and second AD, but the first AD was essential. You know, he knew everything I was going to do. And on the first film, Gary Goldman was his name. He was very helpful. You're going to need
Gary Goldman?
He was out of Chicago, an AD. I did a TV movie, and he was an AD, and I was just looking for ADs, Midwestern. I'm going, you, Escanaba, let's go. Hi, Gary, nice to meet you. So you're going to need a close-up here. You're going to wish you had a close-up. Okay, all right, put it in. You know, I kind of listened. The second one, I had a guy named Eric Pott who was real good as well. And, you know, we had some big, huge chase things and stuff that took a lot of coordinating. So he was very helpful on that. So there's a shot list. There are shots in there that you know Woody Allen's whispering. You know Carol Ballard's whispering in my ear. You know, Robert Altman would just leave it here, you know, and not go in. And so you're listening, you know. It's kind of fun.
What were you surprised that you learned about yourself directing?
I knew more about the camera than I thought. Because I'm never one of these, you know, lens hounds, you know. I've worked with actors, you know.
Right.
Is that a 75 on there? Yeah, make it an 85. Yeah, you're gonna be glad I did this for you. Make it an 85. Up, 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 up. Right there. Oh, the key light. The women with the key light. Up, 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 up. Right there.
Okay. I can feel it.
So, you know, I never listened. I didn't know the difference between a 40 and a 75 and a 120 and 25 and all that. 200, what's that? So, but then I got a crash course in that. But then Tim Busfield's a friend of mine. He was on 30-something, and he's done a lot of directing and television.
I shot a commercial with Tim when he was about 19.
Did you?
Like a Pizza Hut commercial.
Yeah.
He was the pizza delivery kid.
Yes,
He's a good guy.
He would have made a really good pizza guy. He's very funny.
Yeah, he's a
I
good guy.
talk to him once a year or so. He said a really great thing. He goes, "Get away from that monitor. You know, the monitor's great. Check it just to see, you know, did the guy go out of frame? Is it that, you know, check your framing. But you really want to see what you're going to see. Look through the lens. Always look through the lens, and because that's when you'll be in a movie theater and you'll see this thing like that." So that was real helpful.
When the scene was going on, would you sit by the stage and watch the actors, or would you where would you position yourself?
It depended. I was usually off camera. I mean, part of it was if there was a camera move involved, I was back by the monitor watching the camera move. You know, with Escanaba, it was a little easier. The performances were kind of there. You know, reformed them for the camera. But if there was a camera move, I was back there watching, making sure that the move was right. If it was locked down, then I was usually behind there watching. And if I'm in the scene, you know, I'm able to, as actors we always are, we're doing it, but and my next line is this, and I remember I've got to go to the chair after that. So you're always kind of doing that anyway. But then you quit that after a while and you just go because you know that it's going to feel a certain way, and you're going to kind of know when you've got it. And you can always go check the monitor to make sure. By the time we were doing Super Sucker, the second one, I wasn't even looking at the monitor.
There he is. Was he on the set? Guy on the right?
He's on both. He acted in both films.
Right.
And he worked the script on both films.
Right. And did you, I don't know, since you're so collaborative in the theater, did you collaborate at all on the set?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little. Yeah. Well, see, I was on the thing. I was. The whole world was on my shoulders too.
Right.
You know, so they had plenty of opportunities to bring whatever it is they thought.
They meaning?
The actors. The other actors in the film. I had shot lists and producers and, you know, you got to get this by lunch and all this stuff going on. So that, I mean, they had a great time making the film, and I had some fun also at some points during the film. But they really had a great time, you know, because
it's a lot of work, man.
Yeah, and you know, because I was always 3 shots ahead, and yeah.
So, do you have plans for another film to write, produce, and direct?
I don't know. You know, the distribution game is murderous on independent films. I really want to get back to writing plays for the Purple Rose, so that's what I'm going to do.
I had great admiration in reading production notes about how you went ahead to distribute your films. Necessity being the mother of invention, but as we commented earlier about having to do whatever it takes to get it done. I mean, when did you share that with?
Well, it worked on Escanaba. We knew we really tried to get. You know, we kind of went into it blindly. I didn't want. You know, the standard way to do it is get your money from a studio or someone, and then they write you a check for, you know, $2 million, and you are at that point making their movie. It's their money. You're making their movie. So I didn't want to do that, so we raised a lot of money here locally and said, thanks for the money, see you at the premiere. And that meant we got to do the movie we wanted to do. What that also meant was because no studio was putting up the money, which also could distribute the movie if they liked it, we didn't have any distributor. That means we shoot the movie, then we shop it, which is what a lot of indies do. We had some interest on Escanaba, but a lot of people said it's just going to be a regional movie and good luck with it, you know. And it's a lot easier in the distribution business to say no and keep your job than it is to say yes and be wrong. So people can lose a lot of money if they guess wrong. So we decided to open it ourselves on 30 screens in Michigan, and Bob Brown, my producing partner, just picked up the phone and called these movie theaters and said, can we have a screen If it plays over the weekend, give us another weekend. If it it's Jeff, it's Michigan, and it ran for 6 to 8 weeks. And it went from 30 screens up to 48. And then we took it down into Wisconsin, and it ended up grossing about 2.3 million, which is a lot for a little movie. And now the DVD and the video, we just had another surge on the DVD in the fall. So it's like an annuity. Eventually it'll pay for itself. And then it's just every year we'll get a small check, but we'll get out of it.
Yeah.
And Super Suckers, we took it to the Aspen Comedy Festival, this U.S. Comedy Arts Festival. We won 700 films. They chose 11, and we won. And nobody picked it up.
Nobody picked it up.
Nobody picked it up.
Is it dead, or is there still a chance?
It's on DVD now. So in 20 years, I hope to.
It'll be a cult favorite.
To be in profit. Yeah.
Did you do any on the DVDs? Did you do any director discussions?
We did. I did on Escanaba, and we just didn't spend the money on that on Super Sucker. We just kind of threw the DVD out there as quickly as we could get it out. Escanaba was okay. I mean, I did a director's thing on it. It's okay. It's interesting for film students, but.
Just a few more questions. I guess I would be remiss to not bring up Dumb and Dumber. I'm sure some people may want to talk about why he's sitting out there. Why hasn't he brought that film up? And you mentioned how it changed maybe your economic pocketbook, but no.
Well, I did okay, but Jim did really well.
Jim does very well. I did 2 weeks on Bruce Almighty, and
did you?
Yeah, and Jim's daughter is a good friend of my daughter's back in Los Angeles, but. That film, I think, grossed like $450 million just out on release. Let alone, I think they did like $225 million just in the first few weeks on DVDs. I mean, it's unbelievable. Anyway, we'll take a pause.
Somebody's doing well.
Oh yes. Yeah, talk about how you worked on that film and how you created the character.
That was one of those weeks where I flew to L.A. and did the dance, and I met on 4 or 5 films. I need a job. I got to have a job, and so I'm in a hotel room, and I'm just, where's my 4 meetings? And I go to each movie I go to, because they do the same thing. The directors will go, we absolutely think you're brilliant. We think you're absolutely perfect for this, and we'd love to have you in our film. Great. I think this is the film I want to do. I really am excited about this character. Man, would I love to do it, and I can't wait to start shooting, so I hope this goes well. Boom, ba-da-boom, ba-da-boom. Of the 5, 2 of them called back. One was Dumb and Dumber, and said, man, we'd love to have you. Great. One of the callbacks, come on in. So I went in on the callback for Dumb and Dumber first, and the first time I had read in front of Jim and the Farrelly brothers and the producer, Charlie Wessler, with a casting person. And the second time, Jim came down and sat in the chair, and we read the hot tub scene. And I just did, I just emptied my head, And I don't know if this is a Marshall Mason thing, but I literally I got my hair, and then I just, just did that. And I really tried to feel in my brain what a single-digit IQ would feel like. I tried to really get this sense memory or whatever this tried to feel like what an 8 would be, And the Farrellys, and then Jim was right there, and he does this thing, and they said, we knew before you said a word that you guys were already there. And we read the hot tub scene. And the studio wanted Sinbad, and
play your part.
Yeah, and a couple other guys were in there who were really good, but Jim, it was me.
It clicked. Right.
The Farrellys wanted me. I think Jim wanted me, and he said, I don't want a comedian with me. I want an actor with me. It's a buddy movie. I gotta listen. I want it to go back and forth. If I'm with another comedian, I'll do my thing, and then he'll just wait for me to finish, and then he'll try to top me. And they'll ad lib, and it won't work. And so we want you. Great. I had, the night before I flew out to do the wardrobe fitting for Dumb and Dumber, I had 2 agents in LA and 1 in New York, and they all got on a conference call, again, just back from a Red Wing game. And 2 of them are screaming, "You cannot do this movie. You cannot. This is the end of your career. 16-year-old boys are going to see this movie, and that's it. That's it." And I said, I got to shake it up. I got to do something. I'm sick of where I'm headed. So you know what? I think I can stay with Jim. Jeff, with all due respect, he's going to blow you off the screen. Well, not in the toilet scene, because he's not in it. Not in the tongue on the pole scene. He's not in that. I throw a snowball at her head. He's not in that. And, you know, he kind of wants to do a buddy-buddy thing. Well, and then my New York agent, Paul Martino, I've been with him for 25 years or something, said, look, you know what, if he wants to do it, he wants to do it, and you know what, this might work. This just might shake it up. So out I went, and I shot, the first week of shooting was in Colorado, up on the, you know, we did the tongue on the pole, snowball in the head, in the ski lodge with the skis coming over. And first week, Wednesday, I realized that Jim hadn't shot yet. And he did one little scooter shot on Thursday or something, and I realized, oh, I've got 1 week out of a 7-8 week shoot. They had a big meeting at the end of the first weekend, LA, Colorado. Everybody looked at the dailies, and whomever was the studio's choice was waiting for the call. And Sunday night I got a call saying, yep, be on the set at 6:30 in the morning. Okay. Went to makeup Monday morning, the second week. Jim walks in, says, just keep doing what you're doing. They love you. Kept walking. So Jim was part of that. Jim said, he's doing great. Don't fire him.
In that moment at the audition, was that something that you had that just came out of your preparation of trying to be as empty-headed as possible, or was that something that you'd planned out?
I'd worked on it in the hotel room. You got to come up with something. You're reading it aloud. You're trying out this and that. And the other thing, you're trying to make those 2 or 3 choices. And so that was one, and that seemed to work. To physicalize it and do that worked for me. So I just kind of did that, hoping it would, and sure enough, the Farrelly brothers started laughing.
That's great.
So, it just worked. It was just a choice that worked. Ooh, great, I'm already good, so far so good kind of thing. And then you just go with it. And if it's not right, you hope that the directors will not just say thanks next, that they'll go, yeah, it's fine. Let's try one where you don't do the hair thing, So you dive in.
Let me ask a few more questions from the audience before we wrap it up. Bobby Warnock? Bobby? Hi, Bobby.
Hi.
What was one of the 1 or 2 wisest decisions you made in your career, other than marrying your wife?
Oh, man. That's hard to say. Oh, man. There's something. I can't. Let me think about that. I don't know. It has something to do with. I don't know if it's the wisest. I don't know if it's the wisest. I did a movie called Fly Away Home, which I really love. And I had a chance to make a hell of a lot more money doing Independence Day, which is the world ends, Hollywood style. And I keep going back to that, movie. I was playing Bill, someone who was like this guy named Bill Lishman, who's a real guy. And I think I'm a kind of a creative free spirit, and then I met Bill. So I'm really glad I did that. Really glad I did that. I don't know if it's the wisest, but it's one of them.
Would you look to follow your heart more on your intuition? I mean, like you said, you did with Dumb and Dumber, and in this, in choosing what you'll do next.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes, yes and no. Sometimes it's financially driven. I've got to make X amount of dollars in order to live here, and kids in college and this and that. I mean, I can't just go off and do off Broadway and have the family kind of go, what's up?
Yo, Dad.
They took the cars, but I hear the reviews were great. So there is attention paid to that. But I'm a little, and I've gotten caught. Some people question some of my choices. Some of them were flat out for the money. I'm doing a lot less of that. I'm from off Broadway. I mean, you were there. I'm there. Was from there, and I'm not from Broadway. I'm not from the Hollywood star system where you try to become A-list and you create an image and you play to that image 17 films in a row and call it acting. I've character this, character that, off Broadway. I've done some pretty strange films. For me, I love the independent scene because I can kind of do some stuff that is kind of misbehaving in a way. But if you're looking at a career track that makes any sense, I'm not the guy to look at.
So many of these questions are part of it we've discussed in picking plays and working at your theater. Do you prepare differently for comedy or drama?
No. I was on a set with an actress once who said, yeah, I got to do a comedy, that's a whole other thing. And I'm going, no, it's not. You're a character, you're a person, you got problems, you've been it's Marshall stuff, just throw it on there. You've got to be funny. The guy in Dumb and Dumber, he's a real guy. He's got an IQ of 8, and he wants to do this worm farm, and when he thinks Petey's head fell off, he thinks Petey's head fell off. He's very serious about it, which, as we all know, makes it funnier.
Right. The greater the truth, the funnier it is.
Right, so you kind of hang on that. I mean, sure. I mean, if it's a comedy, you have a less of a chance of having that scene where you've got to sob like a child, which is always a great deal of fun. So that would be the only difference, But that just open up and let them in.
Right. What do you have planned to do next?
I'm going to do an independent film with Laura Linney this summer. But I just signed to do, Mitch Albom is doing a television ABC Hallmark Hall of Fame production for TV of The 5 People You Meet in Heaven.
Oh, is he? That's great.
And Mitch has become a great friend, to me and to all of us at the Purple Rose. He's written a play that we're going to do this summer called Duck Hunter Shoots Angel. He loves playwriting. The guy's got time to do playwriting, but he's doing it. But they're going to do this the 5 People You Meet in Heaven. So I've been hanging around him, and he goes, "Look, we're going to do this, and John Voight's playing the lead, and Ellen Burstyn, and I'd love you to play the Blue Man." I'm like, and it's a chance to, be on a set with Mitch. It's a great part. I really like the book, and so we're going to shoot that. I'm going to shoot that in June.
Is there somebody you'd like to work with that you haven't had an opportunity to do yet?
I wish I could have worked with Jack Lemmon. I would like to work with Pacino. I'd like to do something with Jeff Bridges someday. I saw him at an art gallery in LA, and I said that to him, and he looked at me like, "What?" No, doesn't have to be Bo, It can be me. We're sort of brothers. And there's some guys I'd like to work with again. Robert Altman. I'd go with Altman again anytime. He's just such a renegade.
Yeah, he is. Guy, did you ever want to ask him a question and couldn't pin him down?
What's the best part about working with me? thanks for my career.
No, okay.
You know what's great? You know what's great about Guy and the Purple Rose and everything is that, and I've said this before, but it's true, and it's what's helped me get through or keep the level head. Is that I told Nicholson I was a New York actor, and I'm certainly not an LA or Hollywood actor, but I really am like a Michigan actor. You know, but it's true. I mean, I'm from here, and to be around Guy and everybody at the Purple Rose, you know, they have such a pride and a passion for what they do that you know, in a business that can really kind of drown you in the career moves and the business side of it, it's a great inspiration for me to walk in there every day and you know, be around these people that love it as much as they do.
That's great. Do we have some?
This is,
You have
first
a
of
little
all,
something.
Jeff, Dearborn High School donated their space here, and we have two students here from Dearborn, Amelia and Jay, stage managers for the video
Hello.
folks here, and they want to give you something.
So thank you for coming. This is a t-shirt. that says
Oh,
America.
thank you very much.
And we wanted to welcome you to the WDHS family.
Oh, thank you
Doing
very
one of our
much.
videos.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you. Yeah, thanks. We'll get pictures later. That'd be great.
Well, on behalf of the Screen Actors Guild Foundation, for flying me here with Bob from Los Angeles here to Detroit, it's really been exciting, inspiring, educational. And what really, for me as a fellow actor, to hear someone who is an actor, who sees himself as an actor and is continuing to work and improve his craft and branch out, I've got great admiration for you, and thank you for the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.